Negative habits are not formed overnight. They are the slow accumulation of small, repeated actions, reactions to comfort, fear, or desire, that eventually shape the way we think and act. The Stoics, those ancient philosophers of endurance and discipline, understood this truth better than most. They believed that our lives are shaped not by external events, but by our responses to them. To break a negative habit, then, is to reclaim control over the only thing we truly possess, our own mind. At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies one of its most famous principles, expressed by Epictetus. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. This simple distinction between what is within our control and what is not forms the foundation of inner strength. Negative habits thrive when we forget this truth. We waste energy resisting reality, indulging in impulses, or seeking comfort from things beyond our control. The Stoic response is radical in its simplicity. Focus entirely on what depends on you, and let everything else fall away. Habits in Stoic thought are not mere routines. They are reflections of character. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, our life is what our thoughts make it. Each thought, each small decision, is a brick in the fortress of your mind. If those bricks are laid carelessly, through distraction, laziness, or resentment, your inner fortress will crumble at the first storm. But if each action is deliberate, guided by reason and virtue, your character becomes unshakable. To understand how Stoicism helps us break negative habits, we must see habits not as enemies to be crushed, but as servants to be retrained. Every habit begins with a thought, a small whisper of "I deserve this," or "just once more." The Stoic recognizes these inner dialogues and confronts them calmly. Instead of reacting, they pause. They insert reason where impulse once ruled. This moment of awareness is where true strength begins. The Stoics practiced what we now call mindfulness. Long before the term existed, they taught that we should observe our thoughts as if we were watching actors on a stage, without judgment, without attachment. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." This means that each time you feel the urge to fall back into a negative pattern, whether it's procrastination, anger, addiction, or despair, you are being offered a chance to prove your strength. You are being tested, not punished, breaking a negative habit through. Stoicism requires 3 essential steps: awareness, discipline, and reflection. Awareness is the recognition of your habit, to see it clearly without excuse or denial. Discipline is the daily practice of resistance, and reflection is the process of learning from each success and failure, adjusting your behavior in pursuit of virtue. The Stoics didn't aim for perfection. They aimed for progress. Every failure was fuel for improvement, not shame. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome and philosopher of resilience, often reminded himself that being human means falling short. Yet he also knew that each day was a new opportunity to rise again. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. In Stoic practice, this means action over intention. You do not simply wish to quit a habit. You act according to reason, one decision at a time. When you feel the pull of your old ways, you remind yourself, this is not who I choose to be. Modern psychology confirms what the Stoics knew centuries ago. Habits are changed not by emotion but by repetition. The brain rewires itself through consistent action. The Stoic path aligns perfectly with this science. Instead of relying on motivation, Stoicism emphasizes consistent effort, doing what must be done whether you feel like it or not. This mindset transforms discipline from a punishment into a form of freedom. You are no longer a slave to impulse. You become the master of yourself. There is also compassion in Stoicism, not self-pity but self-respect. The Stoic does not hate himself for failing. He studies the failure like a philosopher examines a problem. Why did this happen? What can I learn? How can I respond better next time? This rational self-reflection prevents guilt from becoming paralysis. As Seneca advised, it is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult. To face your habits, honestly, is an act of courage. To persist in overcoming them is an act of wisdom. The first step to breaking negative habits is therefore not to fight them blindly, but to understand them through Stoic eyes. They are not signs of weakness but of unconscious living. The Stoic path invites you to wake up, to live deliberately, guided by reason and shaped by virtue. Every time you resist a destructive impulse, you strengthen the muscle of your will. Every time you choose discipline over indulgence, you move closer to freedom. In the end, Stoicism teaches us that personal transformation is not about control over the world, but control over the self. The negative habits that once held you down can become stepping stones toward mastery. Each struggle is an opportunity to practice patience, endurance, and wisdom, the three pillars of Stoic strength. The more you embrace this path, the more you realize that breaking habits is not merely about changing behavior. It's about becoming who you were meant to be, calm, resilient, and unshakably free. Negative habits are not destroyed by willpower alone. They are dissolved by understanding. The Stoics taught that the mind, once trained to see things clearly, becomes stronger than any impulse. The first and most important lesson is to control what you can and release what you cannot. Every habit you struggle with begins when you try to control something outside your reach, the opinions of others, the comfort of your surroundings, or the emotions that come and go. When you stop wasting energy on what lies beyond your control, you regain power over yourself. Epictetus said, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus himself can control my will." That will, the power to choose your response, is the essence of Stoic strength. Every time you feel the urge to repeat an old pattern, pause and ask, is this within my control? The answer is almost always yes, because the choice to act differently is always yours. That pause, that moment of awareness, is the birthplace of change. When you master your reactions, habits lose their hold on you. The Stoic does not fight emotions. He directs them. He allows anger, fear, or craving to pass like clouds drifting across a calm sky. Control is not about suppression, but understanding. Once you see your impulses clearly, you are no longer their prisoner. You are free. The second Stoic lesson is the art of voluntary discomfort. The Stoics understood that the body and mind grow soft in comfort. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic teachers, deliberately lived for days with simple food, rough clothing, and a hard bed. He would ask himself, is this what I feared? By choosing hardship before it chose him, he built strength before he needed it. Comfort is seductive, but it weakens resolve. Habits rooted in pleasure, laziness, overindulgence, distraction thrive when life is too easy. You don't procrastinate because the task is impossible. You procrastinate because comfort whispers that you can delay effort a little longer. You don't overconsume because you need more, but because comfort tells you that pleasure is the goal. The Stoic breaks this illusion by training the mind to find contentment in simplicity. Choose to walk when you could ride. Choose to fast when you could feast. Choose to endure when you could escape. Each voluntary discomfort sharpens the mind like steel against stone. You begin to realize that pain, hunger, or fatigue cannot break you. They only reveal your endurance. You learn that happiness does not depend on comfort, but on character. When you strip away the unnecessary, you discover that your strength was always there, buried beneath the noise of luxury and distraction. Voluntary discomfort is not punishment. It is preparation. It teaches you to remain calm when life removes the comforts you once relied on. When you can endure hardship by choice, you can endure anything that comes without choice. The third Stoic lesson is to conquer the mind before trying to conquer the world. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Your thoughts are the architects of your behavior." Every habit begins in the invisible realm of the mind. One small thought repeated daily becomes a chain of action. The man who constantly tells himself he is weak will act weak. The one who believes he is trapped will never attempt escape. To break habits, you must first rewrite the story your mind tells itself. The Stoic mind is trained through observation, not judgment. When an unhelpful thought appears, do not fight it with emotion. Observe it like a guard watching the gate. Ask, does this thought serve me or enslave me? If it weakens you, let it pass. If it strengthens you, keep it. This act of mindful awareness is the Stoic's greatest weapon. Seneca wrote that the wise man is his own constant companion. He watches his thoughts the way a warrior watches his enemies. You too must become your own observer. Catch yourself when you begin to drift toward the old pattern. Notice when the mind begins to justify weakness. Then remind yourself, you are not your thoughts. You are the one who directs them. To strengthen this awareness, the Stoics practiced nightly reflection. They reviewed their actions not with guilt but with curiosity. Marcus Aurelius would write, "Where did I act in harmony with reason today? Where did I let impulse rule me?" This habit of reflection turns mistakes into lessons and failures into wisdom. You do not need to be perfect to be Stoic. You only need to be aware. Each day becomes a test, each failure an opportunity to improve your self-command. The Stoic path is not about erasing flaws overnight. It's about refusing to be ruled by them. When you take charge of your thoughts, your habits begin to lose their power. You stop reacting from emotion and start responding with intention. You become deliberate. You act, not out of impulse, but out of principle. The mind that once controlled you now becomes your ally. This is what the Stoics called freedom. Not freedom to do whatever you want, but freedom from being controlled by what you want. These first 3 lessons, control what you can, embrace discomfort, and conquer the mind, form the foundation of all Stoic transformation. Together, they forge the inner armor that protects you from chaos. When you stop fighting the world and start mastering yourself, the power of negative habits dissolves. You begin to see that every craving, every weakness, every moment of anger or fear is not an obstacle but an opportunity and a chance to practice strength. The Stoic understands that progress is built one decision at a time. Each time you choose reason over reaction, discomfort over ease, awareness over indulgence, you take one step closer to freedom. There comes a moment on every path of transformation when the battle turns inward. The enemy is no longer the habit itself, but the mind that clings to it. The Stoics knew this truth well, that change begins not in resistance, but in awareness. To grow stronger, you must first learn to see clearly, and that vision begins with the 4th Stoic lesson, to live in the present moment. Every negative habit feeds on time, on the fear of the future and the regret of the past. You eat when anxious about tomorrow. You procrastinate when trapped by memories of failure. You seek distraction when you cannot stand silence. But the Stoic mind lives here now. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." The Stoic understands that the only place where change exists is the present moment. You cannot quit a habit tomorrow. You cannot improve yesterday. You can only act now. Every time you return to the present, you weaken the power of old patterns. You stop feeding the illusion that change is somewhere else, and you begin to build strength where you stand. The Stoic learns to anchor himself in the current breath, in the current decision, in the current choice. When your mind wanders, bring it back gently. Tell yourself, this moment is enough. Freedom exists in the act of choosing the present over everything that tries to pull you away. The next Stoic lesson is one most people resist, to seek virtue over pleasure. Pleasure is easy, but it weakens. Virtue is hard, but it strengthens. The Stoics never condemned pleasure. They simply refused to be ruled by it. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is a slave to his body. When you live only for pleasure, you become a servant to your desires. You eat because it feels good, not because you need nourishment. You speak because you crave validation, not because you have something meaningful to say. You rest not to recover, but to escape." The Stoic refuses to let pleasure dictate his direction. Instead, he asks a single question before each action. Does this serve my character? If it weakens the mind, dulls the spirit, or makes him dependent, he walks away. This is not deprivation. It is liberation. Every time you choose virtue over pleasure, you remind yourself that discipline is not the absence of joy, it is the mastery of it. You begin to discover a deeper satisfaction, the kind that comes not from indulgence but from integrity. A man who conquers his desires becomes unbreakable, because nothing outside him can shake his peace. The Stoic way is not about denying happiness, but about building the kind of strength that makes happiness stable, not fleeting. True pleasure, the Stoics believed, comes from the harmony between what you do and who you wish to be. The next Stoic lesson is reflection, the daily act of turning inward to measure progress, not perfection. Every evening, the Stoics would review their day with honesty. They didn't judge themselves with cruelty. They studied themselves with curiosity. Seneca wrote that at night he would question his soul. What bad habit have you cured today? What vice have you resisted? In what part are you better? This practice was the mirror of the mind. It turned experience into wisdom. You can follow the same path. At the end of the day, Sit in silence and ask yourself, where did I act against reason? Where did I let impulse win? What can I do better tomorrow? Write your answers. Reflect not to punish yourself, but to prepare yourself. Awareness without reflection fades quickly. But when you combine awareness with reflection, you begin to understand your triggers, your weaknesses, and your victories. You start to notice how small choices shape your character. Reflection is how you turn daily effort into lifelong growth. It humbles you and empowers you at the same time. The Stoics saw reflection as spiritual armor. It protects the soul from drifting off course. When you reflect, you return to the core of Stoic living, progress through intention. But reflection is incomplete without forgiveness. The Stoics were not obsessed with perfection. They were obsessed with persistence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you have done wrong and another has done you wrong, what is left? To begin again." This is the next Stoic lesson, and to begin again, always. Habits are stubborn. You will fail. You will relapse. You will fall back into old patterns. But the Stoic sees failure differently. To him, each fall is a reminder of his humanity, not a reason to quit. What matters is not how often you stumble, but how quickly you rise. The Stoic wakes up each morning with a clean slate, ready to try again with calm determination. He does not carry guilt like a weight. He carries it like a teacher. Each mistake whispers a lesson. Here is where you must grow stronger. This mindset transforms shame into fuel. You stop identifying with your weakness and start using it as a guide toward wisdom. Progress is not linear. It is circular. Each day offers a chance to practice what you've learned before. With a little more strength, a little more awareness, a little more calm, when you learn to begin again without bitterness, you develop the most Stoic quality of all, endurance. Together these lessons and to live in the present, to choose virtue over pleasure, to reflect daily, and to begin again, create a rhythm of self-mastery. They pull you away from chaos and lead you toward stillness. The Stoics understood that a peaceful life is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to remain unshaken by it. When you live in the present, your mind is anchored. When you choose virtue, your actions align with your values. When you reflect, your awareness deepens. There is a quiet power that comes when you stop resisting life and start working with it. The Stoics understood that most suffering is not born from pain itself, but from the refusal to accept it. The next lesson is to accept what happens as if you had chosen it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." This is the essence of Stoic acceptance, to transform adversity into strength. Life will never move according to your plans. It will bend, twist, and challenge you in ways you cannot predict. You will lose people, face disappointment, and fall short of your ideals. But when you see these moments through the eyes of a Stoic, they no longer appear as punishments. They become opportunities for virtue. You remind yourself that you cannot control the storm, but you can control how you stand within it. Every event, no matter how painful, is raw material for growth. The habit of resistance keeps you trapped. The practice of acceptance sets you free. To accept does not mean to surrender in weakness. It means to see clearly without illusion. The Stoic accepts reality because only what is accepted can be improved. When you stop fighting what is, your energy returns to where it belongs, within your control, within your will, within your reason. Acceptance naturally leads to resilience. The Stoics' ability to remain calm under pressure. Resilience is not the absence of struggle. It is the decision to continue despite it. Epictetus taught his students to imagine life as a sparring match. Each blow, each difficulty a test of endurance. Do not pray for an easy life, he said. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult one. When you face temptation, when you feel the pull of old habits, resilience is what keeps you grounded. The Stoic does not crumble when life becomes hard. He becomes harder to crumble. Each challenge is fuel for his inner fire. Where others see obstacles, he sees training. Where others seek comfort, he seeks purpose. The more you endure, the stronger your discipline becomes. The man who practices resilience learns to stand still in chaos, not because he is numb, but because he is prepared. His mind has been tempered like steel. Pain does not break him. It refines him. Resilience turns the weight of difficulty into a form of spiritual strength. The Stoics believe that adversity reveals character the way fire reveals the purity of gold. When you refuse to give up, when you face your battles with calm resolve, You embody the essence of Stoic strength, unshakable composure in a world that constantly tests your limits. The next Stoic lesson is reason and the discipline of thought that separates humans from impulse. The Stoics called it logos, the rational principle that governs both the universe and the mind. To live according to reason is to live in harmony with nature itself. This means making choices not from emotion, but from understanding. This is why Stoic discipline lasts. It is not built on emotion, which fades, but on understanding, which endures. The man who lives by reason no longer depends on mood or motivation. He acts from principle, not from impulse. And this consistency, this calm, deliberate movement through life, destroys negative habits at their roots. When reason rules the mind, chaos finds no place to grow. From reason flows the final Stoic lesson, transformation. Every principle of Stoicism points toward one goal: to become a better version of yourself, not through luck or chance, but through deliberate evolution. Transformation is the reward of those who persist through discomfort, reflection, and discipline. You will not wake up one day completely free from your old patterns. Change happens quietly, like dawn replacing night. One day you will notice that the temptations that once controlled you now pass by, without reaction. You will see that silence feels more peaceful than noise, that solitude feels more powerful than distraction, and that simplicity feels richer than excess. This is what the Stoics called eudaimonia, the flourishing of the soul. It is not happiness in the fleeting sense, but harmony with your highest self. Transformation happens when you stop seeking to escape life and start learning from it. Every mistake becomes a lesson, every struggle a test, every day a chance to practice strength. The Stoic knows that he is never finished. He is always becoming. Each sunrise is an invitation to rise with it, wiser, calmer, stronger. The man who lives by these lessons walks differently through the world. He is not immune to pain or temptation, but he is no longer ruled by them. He understands that the power to change does not lie in the world around him, but in the world within him. He faces chaos with stillness, failure with patience, and success with humility. He learns to turn every challenge into a teacher, every loss into perspective, and every moment into practice. This is the true reward of Stoicism, not the absence of struggle, but the presence of peace in the middle of it. You stop living reactively and start living deliberately. You stop chasing pleasure and start creating meaning. The negative habits that once defined you dissolve, not because you fought them with anger, but because you replace them with wisdom. In the end, the Stoic path is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming consistent. Each day is a test, and each test is a chance to respond with virtue. Control what you can, accept what you can't, endure what you must. And through that process, you will build an inner fortress, one that no fear, failure, or temptation can ever breach. The Stoics never promised an easy life. They promised a strong one, and through strength, you discover something greater than comfort. You discover freedom.